Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table at 11 p.m., phone in hand, staring at a single number. Not your bank balance, not your investment portfolio, your total debt, every dollar you owe across every account, all in one place. And depending on what that number is, you're either completely at peace or you cannot breathe. Because debt doesn't just affect your finances, it changes your entire reality, how you sleep, what decisions you make, and what kind of future you believe you actually deserve. And nobody has ever clearly explained what life looks like at each level, until now. My name is Marcos, and I've spent years obsessing over one uncomfortable truth. Debt is the most misunderstood force in personal finance. Most people think it's simply bad. Others treat it as completely normal. Both perspectives are dangerously incomplete. Today, I'm walking you through exactly what life looks like at every level of debt, from zero all the way to $500,000. If you're anywhere in this spectrum right now, this video will permanently change how you see every financial decision you make. Make sure you continue watching, because what comes next will build directly on everything you're about to learn. Here's what nobody tells you about debt. It's not just a number, it's a psychological environment you live inside of, and that environment changes everything: how you sleep, how you make decisions, what risks you're willing to take, what opportunities you can even see directly in front of you. Research from the American Psychological Association found that 72% of Americans report money as a significant source of stress in their lives. But what the data actually reveals is something far more precise. Financial stress doesn't scale evenly with the size of your debt. It spikes at specific thresholds. There are levels where debt becomes almost invisible in your daily experience, and there are levels where it becomes the constant, suffocating background noise behind every single thought you have, every morning, every evening, without pause. Most financial content treats debt like a simple equation: you owe money, pay it back, done. But the real story, the one that determines whether you build wealth or stay permanently trapped, is about understanding exactly which level you're at right now, what that specific amount is doing to your psychology every single day, and what you can actually do to change your trajectory. The worst part, most people have never clearly defined their own total debt number. They know they owe money, but they've never sat down, added everything up, and stared the full picture in the face, and that avoidance alone is costing them more than the interest ever will. But here's the part that most people completely miss, and it might be the most important idea in this entire video. Debt doesn't just limit what you can buy, it fundamentally determines who you become. And once you understand how, you can never unsee it. Let's start at the bottom of the spectrum, $0 to $10,000 in debt. You might assume this is the easiest level to carry, the lightest load, and financially speaking, it is. But psychologically, this is one of the most quietly damaging zones of all. Here's why. When you owe between $1,000 and $10,000, the amount feels manageable enough that you never treat it with real urgency, but it's large enough that it sits in the back of your mind every single day, a low, persistent hum of anxiety you can never fully turn off. Think about someone like Sarah. She's 27, earning $58,000 a year at her first serious corporate job. She has $7,400 spread across 2 credit cards, each carrying an average interest rate of 21.3%. Every month, she pays the minimum. Every month, she tells herself she'll deal with it properly soon, but she never does. But here's something that might blow your mind. At minimum payments only, Sarah's $7,400 in debt will take 11 years and 4 months to pay off completely, and she'll pay $9,847 in interest alone, more than the original balance she borrowed. She will pay for this debt almost twice over. But the real damage isn't in that math. The real damage is in how this debt quietly reshapes her daily decisions. She skips the investment seminar because the ticket costs $200, and it feels irresponsible while she's still in debt. She delays opening a brokerage account because investing feels wrong when she still owes money. She changes the subject whenever money comes up in conversation because every mention is a reminder of the number she's been avoiding. This is the anxiety trap: small debt, enormous psychological weight. Here's where things get really interesting, and this is something that will probably surprise you. This avoidance isn't protecting Sarah. It's costing her dramatically more in the long run. Every month she delays investing because of $7,400 in debt is a month of lost compound growth. The invisible cost of small debt isn't the 21.3% interest rate. It's the financial paralysis it creates across every area of her life. The lesson at $0 to $10,000 is one word: speed. Not minimum payments, not someday, right now. Because the real cost of this level of debt isn't financial, it's the psychological ceiling it places on every opportunity you encounter. Now we move into one of the most common and most treacherous zones on the entire spectrum: $10,000 to $50,000 in debt. This is where something psychologically dangerous starts to happen. Debt begins to feel normal. At this level, you're probably carrying a combination of credit card balances, a car loan, maybe some remaining student debt. The monthly payments have become part of your budget, just another line item, just another recurring expense. You've stopped seeing the debt as an emergency, and that shift in perception is one of the most expensive mental transitions you will ever make. Consider someone like James. He's 34, married with a household income of $112,000. He has $38,400 in combined debt, $14,200 on credit cards, $18,600 on a car loan, and $5,600 remaining on an old student loan. His total monthly debt payments are $1,147, and James doesn't lose sleep over it. He's managing, he's fine. And the most unsettling part: James actually feels like he's doing well. He has a good salary, a nice car, and a comfortable home. He's experiencing the perfect illusion of financial progress while building almost nothing. But here's where most people mess this up, and I see it constantly. James is not fine. James is trapped in a system that extracts over $13,700 a year from his household. Money that is not building anything, not growing anything, not working for him in any meaningful way. If James redirected that $1,147 per month into a diversified index fund for the next 20 years, at a historical average return of 9.8%, he would accumulate $854,619. That money exists somewhere in his future. He just can't access it yet because it's feeding someone else's balance sheet every single month. This is the normalization danger. When debt payments feel routine, you stop calculating the real cost, not just in interest, but in the wealth you are permanently forfeiting every single month. But here's something that might blow your mind. The households that escape this zone fastest are not the ones who earn more money. They're the ones who radically, temporarily, and ruthlessly cut their lifestyle until the debt is completely eliminated. They treat the debt like a medical emergency because psychologically it is one. This is where the story gets genuinely complicated. $50,000 to $150,000 in debt. And here's the counterintuitive truth that most financial content gets completely wrong. This is the level where debt often looks like success from the outside. At this range, you're almost certainly looking at a mortgage, significant student loans, or both. Society has labeled these good debt. Your bank approved them. Your friends congratulated you on the house. Your mortgage broker shook your hand and told you it was a smart investment, and maybe, you did make a smart decision. But the way you manage this level of debt will either accelerate your wealth or quietly dismantle it, and most people never know which one they're actually choosing. Here's the key distinction nobody explains clearly. Good debt is debt where the asset securing it appreciates faster than the interest rate you're paying. Bad debt disguised as good debt is debt where the interest rate, the opportunity cost, and the psychological burden combine to slow your financial trajectory, even when the asset technically increases in value over time. Let me give you a number that will put this in real perspective. A $180,000 mortgage at 7.1% interest over 30 years will cost you $257,342 in interest alone. The total amount you will pay for that home is $437,342, nearly 2.5 times the original purchase price. Most people at this level have never done that calculation. They signed the papers, moved in, and started making monthly payments, but they've never asked the deeper question, at what total cost? That is not automatically a bad deal, but it is absolutely a deal you need to enter with your eyes completely open. The people who thrive at this debt level do something very specific. They treat their real estate and education debt as leverage, not as a final destination. They are simultaneously paying down high-interest components while building investment positions in parallel. They refuse to wait until all the debt is gone before they start building wealth. And this dual-track approach, paying down debt and investing at exactly the same time, is the single most important financial behavior at this entire level. This is where the path divides, and most people don't even realize they're standing at a fork in the road. Here's where the story becomes two completely different stories happening simultaneously, in the same city, on the same street, sometimes in the same building. $150,000 to $300,000 in debt. At this level, debt has divided the population into two completely distinct groups, and the divide is not income, it is not education, it is not background, it is not luck. The divide is identity, specifically how each person has come to define their entire relationship to money. Person A carries $220,000 in debt across a mortgage, a leased luxury vehicle, and personal loans used to fund a certain lifestyle. Person B carries $220,000 in debt across a mortgage and business credit used to generate rental income and invest in income-producing assets. On paper, the number is completely identical. The life experience is on entirely different planets. Person A is working to service debt. Person B is using debt as a deliberate tool to build assets. Person A experiences debt as a burden that limits their choices at every turn. Person B experiences debt as leverage that actively expands their options. Person A is stressed every time a market correction happens. Person B understands that market corrections are precisely when the best opportunities multiply. Now you might be thinking that this kind of thinking only applies to people with specialized financial knowledge or business experience. And while there's some truth to that, the real answer is much simpler and far more powerful than any technical skill. The defining characteristic of Person B is not intelligence. It's a single question they ask before taking on any debt at all. And that question is, will this debt produce an asset that generates more value than it costs? If the answer is yes, the debt is a tool. If the answer is no, the debt is a trap. This single question, asked honestly and consistently before every financial commitment, is what separates the two groups entirely, not income, not sophistication. One question, asked every single time. Now we reach the top of the spectrum, $300,000 to $500,000 in debt. And at this level, the contrast between the two groups we've been describing becomes absolutely extreme. For one group, $400,000 in debt is crushing. Every economic shift feels like a direct personal threat. Every market headline sends a pulse of real anxiety through their entire day. They are leveraged with no safety margin, no meaningful liquidity, and no clear path to ever seeing the other side. The weight is not financial, it is existential. It has changed how they see themselves, how they interact with their family, and what possibilities they believe still exist for their future. For the other group, $400,000 in debt is a calculated strategic position. It's deliberate leverage against income-producing assets, rental properties, operating businesses, investment portfolios, where the returns consistently exceed the total cost of the debt by a meaningful margin. The debt doesn't haunt them at 2 a.m. because it's not a liability sitting on their chest. It's an engine running quietly in the background. Here's something that will put this entire spectrum in perspective. According to Federal Reserve data, the wealthiest 10% of American households carry on average significantly more total debt than the bottom 50% of households. Not because they made more financial mistakes, but because they internalized a principle the bottom 50% was simply never taught. Debt is not inherently good or bad. Debt is a multiplier. It multiplies whatever financial system you already have in place. and it multiplies in both directions with equal force. If your financial system is sound, debt accelerates your wealth. If your financial system is broken, debt accelerates your collapse. At $300,000 to $500,000, you are either building something genuinely real or you are slowly running out of runway, and the difference, always, without exception, comes back to the quality of the asset sitting on the other side of that debt. Let's go back to that kitchen table. 11 p.m., phone in hand. That number on the screen. Here's what I need you to understand after everything we just covered together. Debt isn't your enemy. Ignorance about debt is your enemy. Every level we walked through tonight, from $7,400 in credit card anxiety all the way to $400,000 in strategic leverage, tells the exact same fundamental story. The people who ultimately win with debt are not luckier or inherently smarter than anyone else. They are simply more honest about what their debt is actually doing to them at each specific level in real time. And I'm going to tell you something your financial advisor probably never will. The moment you know your real number, your true, complete, total debt, you've already taken the single most important financial step of your entire adult life. So whatever your number is tonight, I want you to do one thing. Add it all up. Every card, every loan, every account. Write the total down. And then ask yourself one honest question. Is this debt building something in my life, or is it quietly costing me something? That clarity alone, that one moment of radical honesty, will change everything that comes next. You become the type of person who builds real, lasting wealth the moment you stop avoiding your number and start genuinely understanding it. Start tonight. And if you want to go deeper on what comes after debt, when you're ready to start building real wealth from the ground up, the next video is already waiting for you.